Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be hailing from. My name is Eric, the IT Guy Hendricks, and I will be your host for this special Red Hat Enterprise Linux Presents, a Red Hat Insights miniseries. I feel like we should have worked with marketing a little bit on what to call this, but we're calling this a Modernizing RHEL Management miniseries. This is a little bit different than what we've done on the channel, but before I get too deep into that, I would be remiss if I didn't introduce my illustrious co-host, the one and only Mr. John Spinks.
Thanks, Eric. I'm really looking forward to this. We've got 10 episodes in store for you, covering all the things that are RHEL focused in the world of insights. And it is indeed going to be hopefully how we modernize our management techniques with RHEL.
So this was actually kind of a blown up. Let me rephrase that. Let me try that again. So what we're doing is kind of based upon a session that was at Red Hat Summit just a few months ago, and it was incredibly popular, especially with some of the Insights expansion announcements. So we decided that we're going to take that content, kind of zoom in on each piece a little bit, and get a good baseline. So if you keep hearing about this Red Hat Insights thing, and you keep getting told by a friend, a colleague, or maybe a Red Hat account teams that you really should try this Red Hat Insights thing out, we're going to help walk you through step by step how to do that. Like John said, we're looking at about 10 episodes. So unlike RHEL Presents or Into the Terminal, we have set objectives. We've actually got the entire mini series planned out. And a little birdie told me, John, that that Eric, the IT Guy, actually has a meeting after this live stream to look at getting some customized graphics for the miniseries. So
that sounds awesome.
Better late than never, I suppose. But yeah, we're really excited about this. It's a bit of an experiment with kind of a mini series approach. But if you're familiar with Into the Terminal, we're looking at short 30-minute episodes, very, very demo heavy. But today we wanted to take a few minutes and just kind of lay a groundwork here. And I think the best thing to start is, what is Red Hat Insights? And the other term that maybe incorrectly gets used interchangeably is the hybrid cloud console. So John, how does this work together?
Yeah, those are the two critical pieces that we're going to be talking about over the next 10 weeks or so. We'll start with the hybrid cloud console, and that's essentially the web property that you're going to find at console.redhat.com. So the hybrid cloud console, it is a web-based management interface for all of the Red Hat hybrid cloud products. And you use the console to manage not only just RHEL, but OpenShift and Red Hat Ansible Automation Platform. Insights is a tenant of the hybrid cloud console. So at times it's going to get confusing. Some of the features that we're going to talk about, things like role-based access control, notifications, and integrations with third parties, those are actually features of the hybrid cloud console, and Insights gets to use those. But we don't want all of these different services and capabilities each trying to do role-based access control in their own way, or trying to do notifications in their own way. Having that centralized hybrid cloud console is our a higher level layer of abstraction to say this console is providing these services is going to make a lot better experience overall, not just for Insights, but for other things.
So is the hybrid cloud console one console to rule them all?
Well, I mean, we hope so, but as people start using more and more capabilities that appear out on the console, I did see a comment saying that, hey, this sounds very much like telemetry and metrics. I mean, that is some of the capabilities that's available out there in hybrid cloud console, and telemetry feeds some of the data with Red Hat Insights, so we all work together.
Yeah, so I mean, that's kind of how Insights got started. It was what we now call the advisor tool, basically pulled in a lot of information, spit out a report, said, hey, you might want to look at these things. But since then, I mean, just for RHEL alone, there's upwards of 20 different services now?
We're getting towards that area. We've got a dozen really solid ones that have been out there for a while. And if you start pulling in some of those other things that are really features of hybrid cloud console, yeah, you're probably in that 20 range. But there's, like I said, role-based access control, notifications, eventing, all those are hybrid cloud console, but we heavily leverage them for managing RHEL.
So I think what kind of triggered Shantanu's comment was this idea of I want to keep my data safe. It's my data. I want to hoard it here in my environment. Nobody touch it. So if I sign up for this insights thing, do I have to give all of my data to Red Hat? I mean, what am I doing here?
I do want to cover that, but we didn't really touch on what Insights was. So let's.
Oh, sorry.
We did cover hybrid cloud console, but we didn't really go into Insights. So let's cover that real quick. So the idea of Insights is it does analyze your different platforms and applications, helps you predict risk, recommend actions, and track cost. And the idea is that it is a proactive mechanism where you can set up Insights, you can go out there, and you can address things that may be happening in your environment before they actually cause you downtime or some sort of major issue. That was the original idea behind Insights, is we leverage what data we're collecting to do analytics and say, hey, we've got a lot of customers out here in Red Hat land. We've seen some similar to you have this problem. You don't want to have that problem. Let me tell you how to avoid it. Let me tell you how you can go, have a nice night of sleep and not have your phone ring at 3:00 in the morning.
Former sysadmin, tell me more.
Yeah, former sysadmin here as well. That first service, you mentioned it earlier, called Advisor, was the OG Insights. And its whole goal was basically to take data from the system of really basic metadata kind of thing. Like, how long has your system been running and what packages do you have installed and active? And we could look at that data and go, oh, well, your uptime is 180 days. And we happen to know that this particular package crashes somewhere once you cross the 200-day mark. If you're approaching that pretty rapidly, you probably want to recycle this service and update it to a newer version that doesn't have this crash. So if you're at that 180-day mark, we might say, this is a pretty critical issue. You might want to address this. But if you're at the 90-day mark or 25-day mark, we can say, you get this eventually. You got a while that you need to address this. This is a medium severity. So we can look at different factors in the system and adjust how critical an issue is and how rapidly you need to address it based off some of those factors.
All right. So now you're going to tell me why I should give you all my data and why that's not actually true.
The first thing is we don't want all of your data. I was talking to somebody at Summit and they had this very same conversation with me. And they were like, hey, like my customer is really concerned about the data that Insights collects and they really don't want to use it because of that concern. I'm like, so are they using like AWS or Azure? And they're like, yeah, they're 100% cloud. 100% cloud. But they don't want to give us any of their data. But they're willing to give their cloud provider all of their data. He was like, didn't think about it that way. But yeah, it's a really common concern is, hey, I'm not used to giving Red Hat my data. At least I don't think I am. But we don't hear similar concerns a lot of times about AWS or Azure or ServiceNow, Office 365. A lot of times we don't hear similar concerns about our SOS reports or SOS reports when we're having support cases. And we don't tend to hear similar things about Subscription Manager. But if you go out and look at Subscription Manager, which pretty much everybody registers to at some point, we can go out there and we can tell you information like, do you have any advisories on your systems? Do you have, here's the packages that are running. Got that same data and Insights. You're concerned about Insights, but you're not concerned about Subman. That's a little bit of a disconnect. So Insights focuses on the minimal information that we need to perform an analysis. So we're going to take the data. I gave an example earlier of you need to know if a service is running more than 200 days or it's going to potentially crash and run out of log space. So in order to test that, we would need to know what is the system uptime, and we need to know what packages are installed and running. So that's the kind of data that we're looking at with Insights. I do not have a list of here's everything that Insights collects. We've been asked for that in the past. We have actually produced that once upon a time, many, many years ago, but we got asked to take it back down because it does change over time. As we create new rules or recommendations within the advisor service, there may be something that happens really quick. And we go, oh, we need to go look at something that we've never looked at before to test to see if this factor is true. So something like, the Azure, oh my God, vulnerability that came out like a year ago, that was probably the biggest one that I've got in mind for an example, where it was like, hey, there's this thing that's Azure installs. Did you know about it? Is it running? Are you vulnerable? We can tell you. And we turned around in about 30 hours, tested, and released a recommendation to let you know if you were affected by this particular vulnerability. But in the process, we went looking for something that we never looked at before, which was a particular package, if it was installed and if it was listening. Let me see here. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here, if you don't mind making me live. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to pop into a console here. Hopefully that's readable on your end. Does it look okay?
Looks good to me.
All right. So one of the things I just wanted to share is you can do a collection without sending Red Hat any data. So if you're like, I just really don't know what you want to collect, you can look at it for yourself. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to look at Insights client here and see if it's running. So sudo instance client dash status. Give you my password here. Whoops. And I deleted the S. This is how we know it's real.
All right.
All right. So the first thing I just want to highlight here is I should not be reporting any data to Insights at this time. The Insights API says this machine is not registered. So the next thing I want to do here is do the command sudo Insights client dash no upload. So the Insights client is pre-installed with RHEL 8 and 9. It's on the system. You don't have to install this. If you got a very old version of 6 or 7, you might have to install the Insights client, but for other versions, it's installed by default. This is there. It's just not active, meaning it's not registered. So we're not sending any data by default at this time. So what I'm doing here is this command, no upload. It's going to create that collection packet. It's actually going to go put it all together in the zip file. And this is the data that Insights would send to Red Hat. So when this finishes running, what we're going to do is take a look at that data file and get an idea of what we're collecting and the size. Have you ever done one of the sauce reports, Eric?
I have in a previous life.
Any idea what the size of that file might have been? I mean, did it fit on a thumb drive or?
Oh my gosh! Back in the day,
kilobytes, megabytes, gigabytes.
Yeah, probably in the terms of megabytes, if not hundreds of megabytes.
Yeah, a lot of them go into the gigabytes here. I'm going to highlight on the screen the bottom line: archive saved at var cache Insights client. So I'm going to actually move to that directory. All right. Yep. And one thing I cannot do is type and talk at the same time, apparently.
It is incredibly difficult, especially the more people that are watching you type.
Yeah. So I can't see it. It's under root. This is fun. All right. Trying really hard not to run things as root around here, but since I'm going outside of the going off the script a little bit.
Well, I mean, those into the terminal guys run everything as root, so
yeah, I was trying really hard.
We can probably get away with it.
All right. So what I wanted to show you here is what we've got is this zip file that we just created, and that file is 244K. That'll seem like a lot of data.
No, not at all.
Yeah. It's probably compressed super big. So let's see what this looks like once we spin it out. All right. So 4.7 meg, and that does include the file. So let's see here. 4.5 meg once we extract everything out. That's the data we're looking at. So it's not a huge amount of data compared to something like what we have on a SOS report. If I'm going to look at the list here, probably metadata is our biggest. We've got a little bit here in data. So I'm going to go into the metadata here and let's take a look. It's a lot of little spec files, and there's things in here like Yum repo list. I mean, that's probably that's something we might need to know for one of our recommendations is what's the repositories that we're looking at, or systemctl, sysconfig, the sudoers list, not the list of people. That could be a scary one. So let's look at that one real quick. Because I think people get really concerned that there's a lot of PII in this.
Right.
So let's just what's in the. Let's see here. All right, we're just looking to see if anybody's been pulling out information. It's not actually the list of my sudoers, so there's no usernames in here. There's no passwords in here. This is just mostly things like how is it configured, because there's a recommendation that we need to look at. There's also one called data, which people are always very concerned about their data. So let's see. Insights commands is the biggest, followed by etc. So that's insights commands. Manager facts. Uptime. I mentioned that one earlier. Yum updates list. Anything in here seem scary or concerning? Anything you want to take a peek at?
Nothing that Red Hat wouldn't already have, or is so incredibly like non-volatile that I would worry about it. Like,
yeah,
you'd already have my subscription manager facts, you being Red Hat. Uptime, inconsequential. So Shantanu asks about, does Insights collect log messages?
We do not collect full log messages, but there are situations we'll be looking to see if there's a certain string within a log message. And usually if we catch that, I don't have an example off the top of my head to pull one up, but we'll say like, yes, we met this string, or no, we didn't. So we don't go in and look at the full list. Let me see what we got here. Our log messages. I'm purposely going slow which is why I'm going one directory at a time. Okay, that's cat messages. So it looks like we got some subscription manager errors. It's pretty common. And probably what it is there's a recommendation we've got in here that's looking for this. So these are the kind of things that we're collecting for Insights. The other big thing is you have 100% full control over all of this data. One thing we do collect that I didn't go into, by default, we do collect IP addresses and host names. So if you want to turn that off, there's a config file. You go in the config file and just change that to, I don't know if it's true or false off the top of my head. Let's look. Insights client comp file, obfuscate IP addresses, obfuscate host name. So you just change these values from false to true, and you no longer send that data.
But for the most part,
what was that?
I mean, for the most part, though, Insights isn't doing much with something, say, like a host name. It's a lot like adding a host name to your support case that says, this is the server name that I'm using. This is where all these logs came from. So one, it helps color the conversation that if I've got a communication issue between two servers, we're not using made up terms like server A and server B. The Red Hat support technician can say, hey, server 123 XYZ is having this issue. Go in and look at it. So it really just provides a label for the actual system. It's not like Insights is going to go and see if there's anything nefarious.
Come in here super handy. If you do decide, or if you are in a region where the host name is considered PII and you're going to obfuscate it, set the display name or the Ansible host name. Display name, it would be the name it's going to show you in the UI. So later on in the series, we're going to launch a system from AWS. I'm going to use the display name to give it a little bit more friendly name for the duration of the episode. So it's not just, IP dash blah, blah. I'm not going to go through making a full host name because this is something I'm going to delete at the end of this series. But you can set the display name and that will show in the UI as opposed to a random UUID, which is what you would get if you just obfuscated the host name. It makes it really hard for you to tie the issues back to the host. And that's where the Ansible host name comes in, is maybe in your Ansible inventory, if you have it set up to understand some other kind of friendly name, you can enter that here. And that way you can actually run automation against these hosts. So you could create a playbook, use the Ansible host name. It would generate the playbook with that host name rather than random UUID.
Okay, so we've gone from 1.2 gig for an SOS report. That number seems to play in my head from a past life, down to 4.5 meg. So you've convinced me, John. I feel like my data is okay. It's safe with Red Hat. How do I go about registering my systems?
There's one other thing, because I see some of the chat in here. In addition to this, this is the super simple IP address and host name. And if we go into redhat.com insights info, this is a list of resources that we have here, including our data application security page. So if I follow the tree into that page, there is information in here. And it's actually going to tell you on the data collection section how we go in and create a deny list, in essence, where you can say, hey, I do not want to ever collect foo because foo is my super secret project and I want to create a redaction.yaml file that will prevent foo from ever being collected. Or I'm super paranoid about social security numbers and I know that you're not collecting social security numbers, but I'm required to put in, this particular regex expression that says don't collect social security numbers. You can put all of that data, into here. So you can set up a pattern that's, a pattern for social security numbers, and we would never collect a 9-digit set of numbers.
Yes, sir. Makes sense.
If you do go in and you get super ambitious and you say, hey, I don't want Red Hat to ever collect anything about my networking stack whatsoever, just know the impact of that is also we can never give you any advice or information about your networking stack. So the more you cut out, the less useful the tool gets.
Makes sense.
Yeah. All right. So the questions you were asking me is, you're happy with the data, you've passed it by your security team, you're ready to register the systems. There's a few different ways that we can do that. If you're using a newer system, RHEL 8.5 or newer, including the RHEL 9 systems, we have a new one called RHC. And the whole point of RHC is it wraps subman and insights commands into a single command. So you would do RHC connect. I'm just going to do status. Because this system's already been connected once using RHC. It's checking on subscription management. It is connected. Now it's going to check to Red Hat Insights. And it should come back and tell me that it's not connected. The nice thing about RHC, remote host configuration is what it stands for, is it also can handle direct remediations of the things that we set up with Insights. So if you create a playbook inside of Insights itself, we can fix things. So since I ran the command, I did connect it to Insights in the process. So now we're successfully connected. I should have done -- status, but that was my bad. The other one is Insights Client. This is the most common one, where you would go Insights Client -- register, type in that command, and that's going to register you to Insights itself. We also have it in the web console. I don't want to do root. Login. Within the web console itself, just connected to Insight, so it currently has no rule hits, which is great. But I can see in the subscriptions page, it should say connected, but I'm going so fast. There it is. Refresh. Connected to Insights. So it's telling me right here that I'm connected. We just uploaded the data today at 3:27 p.m. and it's going to do it again tomorrow at 11:58, or technically tonight. So Insights, when you activate it, it uses a system D process to make sure that we're sending data one time per day. So roughly every 24 hours, we send a data packet.
So this isn't designed to be a replacement for your live management tools. It's not like virus scanners where it's constantly
Correct.
checking your system.
Absolutely. Yep. This is a quick sanity check that everything is working as expected. We also have it built into Satellite itself. So within the Satellite UI, you can log in and you can register to the Satellite. So let me log in here. There's a couple different ways you would do this in Satellite. So if I go configure Ansible roles, I've already pulled in, this is a default role that is installed on the Satellite itself, which is the Insights client role. So I can actually run this role on a content host. So all I would have to do at this time, if I wanted to roll this out to my whole estate, is click all the hosts, select action, run all Ansible roles. And it's going to register that system to all of these systems to Insights for me. If you're used to Satellite and you click the register host wizard as you go through and set this up, I don't have any capsules, go into advanced, set up Insights. The default is to inherit it from the host parameters, which it's set Insight to yes, or you could override it. So my default activity here within my Satellite is I'm registering to Insights. So, and in addition to Satellite itself, you can use Ansible collections. So Galaxy has got the Red Hat Insights role and collection, and you can leverage that in your Ansible automation platform or Ansible environment, however you like. So many, many different ways to get connected to Insights. It's super easy. One other quick note about Satellite before I move away. Configure Insights. I just want to highlight for all the Satellite admins out there, the only findings from Insights that you see inside of the Satellite UI are the advisor findings. So you don't see any of the other services that we're going to talk about over the course of the next several weeks. And the other thing you may want to do if you're a Satellite person is look into Cloud Connector. So Cloud Connector did configure RH Cloud under inventory upload. There's a configure Cloud Connector button. This runs a quick playbook on the Satellite host, and it connects Satellite and Insights together, meaning that we can see playbooks that we create on the Insights side, and we can execute them using Ansible remote execution inside the UI. I also want to highlight here that you can very easily obfuscate host name and IP addresses of those systems that are registered through the Satellite. Insights does leverage Satellite as a web proxy by default. So all the data goes from the host to the capsule to the Satellite out to Insights. That's default behavior. We basically just use Satellite as a proxy.
That's awesome. And so one of the other things that one of the other ways to register your system is actually in an automated fashion. Next week we're going to do this weekly for 10 weeks. John, what did we do to ourselves?
Oh my gosh, that's all right.
So next week we're actually going to look at how to build in Insights registration into a predefined image. So if you're using something like Image Builder or the Image Builder service on the Hybrid Cloud Console, you can actually build the Insights registration right into your images. So the minute that they spin up and get an IP address, they'll go out, they'll register with the subscription service, they'll register with Insights as well. So definitely tune in next week as we talk about how to build this in. As we talk about building this in,
for sure.
But before we wrap, if I were someone who just registered a few systems, maybe I'm playing in my home lab at home with my Developer for Individuals free subscription, what would I do first? I've got something. I've got a system or two registered. What should I do first?
Yeah, so if you play with this between now and the next couple of weeks, I'm on console.redhat.com, and I'm going to scroll down a little bit here. We've got Red Hat Insights, and I'm going to click Manage RHEL. The whole point of this Insights dashboard that we have hidden here is all the data you have across your different systems. We're going to try to present to you the information in a way that lets you focus on what's most impactful, what's going to get your systems in the best situation as soon as possible. So if I look at this dashboard, there's a lot here. So we're going to start with latest critical notifications. We got something new that's been released. In this case, it's a new CVE that affects some systems. I've got incidents in Advisor. Incident means it's not proactive in nature. It's happening now. So this is something you probably want to address sooner rather than later. Similarly, we focus on invulnerability. We look at vulnerabilities that have security rules and known exploits. We're going to talk about all that in a couple weeks. But yeah, I would start with the things that we're showing here on the dashboard, poke into those a little bit, and focus on any issues that are considered high impact, critical incidents. Words like that mean this is something that's actively affecting you now, and you probably want to address it with a higher priority. All right. And I don't know that we've mentioned one of the most important things is we've shown you all this insight stuff.
Cookies?
It's included in your RHEL subscription.
I teased that a moment ago, but you are absolutely correct. Whether you have a full support premium RHEL subscription or you have the RHEL subscription for individuals, you get insights with RHEL. So, in fact, all of my systems here in my home lab are automatically registered with Insights. So if you go out to developers.redhat.com, you can sign up for a free developer subscription, or if you've got a VPC license with hundreds of thousands of nodes, you can sign up for Insights as well. It's included in your subscription.
Yeah, it looks like we had a couple quick questions. We can handle them real quick and then wrap up.
Sounds like a plan to me. So most recent here was Conan asks if you can push commands through Insights to machines.
Be cautious how I answer this one. So
yeah, I think he worded that intentionally.
What you can do is if we have detected an issue, let's say a vulnerability, along with the CVE, we say this is the appropriate way to fix that vulnerability. So for all vulnerabilities that have errata, we have a playbook that will help you fix that errata, and you can push those changes out to the hosts. So you can say, hey, this particular vulnerability exists on 50 systems. You can send that out and fix 50 hosts. I will caveat that with you have to have set up all the appropriate things, including role-based access control, because nobody can do that by default. It requires a higher level of access as a security precaution. What you can't do, because the question was, can we push commands? You cannot inject your own commands into it. So the playbooks that we create with Red Hat, they are signed playbooks. They are vetted by our support team that this is something that addresses the system. So we don't want to become a vector for a man-in-the-middle type attack. So you can run the playbooks that we create. You can't currently inject your own code into it.
Looks like Conan's thinking more fleet management than remediation.
Yep.
I'd almost think that might be more of a question for maybe Ansible Automation Platform.
Yes.
So a little bit ago, Shantanu asked if the Insights collector has a method to collect from a list of nodes, usually cluster installation of some third-party system.
When I hear node, I start to think OpenShift, and we do have Insights for OpenShift, which is a lot of the same capabilities that we're showing here today. It's different services, but essentially we, by default, starting with OpenShift 4, we have Insights, and it is activated and enabled by default on OpenShift systems. I'm not sure if that quite answers the question.
So node equals machine, no OpenShift.
Okay.
So what I'm thinking through is if I'm installing a cluster of of machines. If Insights Collector will collect from all of them at once, or maybe asking, can you determine when that schedule runs? So maybe you've got an environment that's very network latent, sense network network latency sensitive. There we go. And um, and so maybe you want that collection, as small as it is, to run off peak hours.
Yeah, so you can, by default, what I would do if it's more about when you run the collection itself is you go into the config file and you can actually disable the schedule, and then you manually schedule it using cron or something like that. So you would schedule your group of systems to run at the same time. That'd be more of a manual operation today. But in the case of something like a clustered MySQL, I don't know if it's really critical that those all run at the same time. It might be advantageous for them to run at a staggered time, actually. But we do have information. We'll talk about it more when we cover Advisor, but we have topics that cover specifically things like MySQL and Microsoft SQL and SAP HANA and all of those different workloads that sometimes we'll look at cluster issues as part of the recommendations that they provide.
Awesome. And I think that's a good place to wrap. If I'm skimming through here, it looks like we covered pretty much everything. There's some good conversation going on in chat, so really appreciate you, all of you, joining us live. If you're catching this after the fact, please use the comments below. Scott McBrien, John Spinks, myself, Nate Lager, we all spend quite a bit of time out on the RHEL YouTube channel. So if you've got some questions, feel free to put those in the comments. Otherwise, tune in, same bat time, same bat channel next week, because we are going to be looking at how to build out images with Red Hat Insights, and some of the services that are tied into that. I know today was kind of dry. We trust me, John and I wrestled with that for several weeks in the planning process, but it's just like there's no way around it. We've got to set the context. We've got to set up the conversation so everyone's on the same page. But it's
to do the 101.
Right. Yeah. So it's it was 37 minutes of your time. You probably watched a time and a half speed anyway. So join us in the coming episodes. We got some really cool stuff. John has put in an incredible amount of work on the demos. Admittedly, I didn't really do much. So so John's got some awesome stuff we're going to take a look at starting next week with new images. If you follow the RHEL YouTube channel, this Friday there'll be, make sure I got my weeks right, there's no Into the Terminal this week. The team's taking taking a week off. There's a couple of us out of town. And but next week we'll be wrapping up our packaging story arc with troubleshooting containerized applications. So a lot of cool demos going into that. I'm pretty sure I can, all the way from halfway across the country, hear Nate banging his head on his keyboard, working on building a troubleshooting lab for containers. And then join me again tomorrow around this time. In fact, we'll be interviewing Matthew Miller, the Fedora project lead for the Fedora Linux community. We'll be catching up with him, what's new in the community, what's new with Fedora Linux, and the upcoming user conference, or the developer conference called Flock with Fedora. So lots and lots and lots of stuff going on. We've got some new tech tip videos out, so stay tuned to this channel. Hit the subscribe button. Make sure to smash that bell. I'm not sure why we're promoting violence on the channel, but you have to smash the bell to get notified. But with all that said, on behalf of John Spinks and myself, Eric the IT guy, and the entire Red Hat Enterprise Linux and Red Hat Insights teams, really appreciate you all tuning in, and we will see you next week.